All right. Well, hey there, everybody. Look at that. We're sitting next to each other. See, he's in the
Yeah,
flesh. Look at this. Hey, everybody. This is Kenny Ann
Kenny squared.
with the sports on the Positive Tip podcast. So, how you doing, man?
It's been a crazy month. A lot
Yeah,
of
just
different ways.
something small happened with you, right? Because there's a
Yeah,
reason why we haven't done for a few weeks, and that reason is
the new baby daughter.
exactly. Yes, we've got a beautiful little girl. Eliana Treasure McQuiller. She's doing great. I'm here to finally have met her. Well, finally, it's only been a week and a half, but she'll be 2 weeks old on Sunday, man. Amazing. Time
Yeah,
flies, right? So I haven't been watching too much sports. You can't. Not yet.
no,
Yeah.
too tired to watch
Yeah.
sports.
But let's jump in anyway because you're following some things along. So let's start with the World Series, the Fall Classic. But is it still the Fall Classic? I hope so. But let's wrap up the championship series. Were you surprised at the results of Braves Dodgers and Astros Red Sox?
I don't really necessarily think so. I think, especially with the Braves, they're a very unique team. I saw this earlier. I'd have to look it up again. I believe at the All Star break they were 40-45.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mm-hmm.
and this is a team coming off of having a 3-1 lead in the NLCS last year. And they got to the point where they were back in there. And it must have been in all of their heads. Brian Snitker was asked about it after they had won. Like, you guys were up 3-1 again. Like, that must have been in the back of your heads that you guys blew it last year. And they were like, yeah, we knew we had to win. Um, so I think especially once they started to like kind of get that groove after those two walk-offs in games 1 and 2, I think that they were primed to go there. The Astros was a little more surprising for me because I don't know if you knew this, the Red Sox set multiple postseason records for grand slams. I think they hit 2 the first game or the second game. They hit 3
What
overall.
happened to their offense after that, though? It just was stunning to me, right?
Yeah, like that to me is probably the most surprising. Um, but also sometimes you kind of see that ebb and flow. I think it was 2012 when the Yankees played the Tigers,
Mm-hmm.
and like everyone wasn't hitting. A-Rod had a horrible like 0 for 20. Um, Nick Swisher, I remember, was really bad. Mark Teixeira, who had been good in previous ones. So like there's that aspect of the ebb and flow, but also the Red Sox are really good at just getting on base, making contact, and getting guys in. Guys like Rafael Devers, who I believe was top 3 in the league in RBIs.
He's a great hitter, man.
Yeah.
He's actually a great player because he's a good third baseman too. But yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, no, but also like guys like him, Bogarts.
It just stopped hitting.
Yeah, Schwarber. Well, Schwarber's kind of.
And give credit to the Astros pitching.
Yeah.
Those two guys that they put in for game 5 and 6, and they let them pitch a few innings right into the 6th inning. What a concept!
Yeah.
The other guy, he had a no hitter. The guy in game 6 had a no hitter going into the 6th inning. So you weren't surprised at the results? I mean, I thought that, well, first, I think it would be really, really tough odds to come back from 3-1 deficit 2 years in a row with the
Yeah.
same team. But yet again, I just felt like the Dodgers was still going to be a tough out. They had the heart of a champion. They've been to, several World Series now in the last 5, 6 years. They've had a lot of success. But they were hurting too with injuries, right? They were missing Justin Turner,
He's a big one.
Max Muncy. And so were you expecting the Braves to win that?
I guess somewhat. Once they actually took that first 2-0 lead,
Yeah.
I was like, okay, I think they probably have it. I thought that one of the things that to me was a little head scratching. We've talked a little bit about how managers tend to overmanage. I think one of those instances is like, I know it's hindsight is 2020, and they were probably saving him for Game 7, but why didn't you go with Max Scherzer in Game 6?
I mean, now, was he hurt though? I don't know. Let's give him the benefit of the doubt there, maybe, because he hinted that he had a dead arm. He said right after, but you threw him in relief there too. And so let's go a little deeper here for a few seconds, right? And then we'll jump into the World Series, which the games haven't been greatly competitive these first two games, but I think the series is going to be a really good one. The over managing, and you and I were talking about that. We feel like baseball blows these opportunities because I think there were 3 games in this postseason that's gone past 4 hours. And, one of them you couldn't turn from. The Braves Dodgers one where Clay Bellinger, I always call him Clay, his father, Cody, hits the home run, to tie it up in the 8th inning. It was just one of those special games. But no one's going to sit there for 4 hours. I'm sorry. As much as we love baseball, it's hard for us to do that. So the over managing, though, is the other big deal that causes these games to go so long and just drag and changing every pitcher, not letting a starting pitcher go past like 4 innings. These guys are used to pitching 6, 7 innings in the regular season. Yeah. Talk a little bit about that. I mean, there's just I think baseball blows an opportunity here because you got Astros Braves, which if you knew anything about these two teams from the regular season, this should be a great World Series.
Yeah, I think the hesitation of kind of letting guys do their thing kind of really comes out because one of the bigger things, especially in analytics today, is not letting guys face batters a third time. This is a huge thing also last year with the infamous pulling of Blake Snell, even though he'd only given up a couple hits. But I think a lot of times, like, managers tend to trust their relievers more than they trust their starters. But to me, if a starter is rolling, you keep going with him. Like, I would be... Now, obviously this didn't happen, but let's say in the wild card game, Garrett Cole is dealing after 6. That's a guy that's going to go 7 or 8. But if it's someone, say, like, using the Yankees example, Jordan Montgomery, and he's got like 5 shutout, they're going to take him out and pull somebody else in there. And to me, like, that guy's in a rhythm, that guy's doing his thing. And you look at like some of the championship teams in the past, it works really well. Now, I'd have to double check this. I believe 2016 is probably where it kind of shifted because the World Series in 2016, 7 games, big one here in Cleveland. Obviously, the Cubs winning it.
Uh-huh.
I believe it was the first World Series where not a single starter went 6 innings. And a lot of that was Terry Francona, smart manager.
He was a great manager.
Excellent guy.
Yeah.
Pulled out his ace in the hole every single time he could. Andrew Miller would throw like 2 innings anywhere where it was really necessary.
And Chapman for the Cubs.
Yeah.
His arm, he said, was dead after a bit. It's just, I don't know. And he's a good man. I thought Dave Roberts totally overmanaged, especially in Game 1.
Yeah.
When he put his closer in the 8th inning, and he said afterwards it was matchups. But you've got a closer who really wants to prove himself in the postseason, and Jensen, who's been in a lot of postseasons, he's just had mixed results. And now Trinan, outside of Aaron Lupin, had probably the best year for a middle reliever, right? 8th inning guy. Keep him in the 8th inning. I don't get it. You had it set up. And then Trinan gives up, the winning run in the 9th inning. That's not where he's used to being. Is there something that throws these pitchers off when they're put in, earlier than they're normally used to in the regular season? Because there is a good pattern in the regular season generally. Most teams have a 7th inning guy, an 8th inning guy, a 9th inning guy. If you're putting that 8th inning guy in the 6th inning, does that throw them off as well?
I would say so because, like, especially if you're in a role for a long time. I see this with hitters too. Like when they, in the postseason, when they're like, oh, we'll put this guy up leadoff even though he hasn't hit leadoff all season.
Yeah.
I feel like especially pitchers kind of get into that groove.
Yeah.
And especially like they realize when they're in there, especially guys that are coming in high leverage situations, they realize like, oh, this is really, really on me. And then they try too hard. Now in other instances, like the guy from the Braves, Matsitz or whatever, goes and like strikes. Yeah. He strikes out the side in like a huge spot. But I do feel like a lot of times, like, kind of go with what your formula has got you to the playoffs anyway.
Yeah.
Because I think something that we see, and we'll probably see if this series goes. I mean, it's going at least 5. If it's going 7, somebody's going to give up a big hit late because they've been overused.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's happened every year the
Yeah.
last few years with the Yankees.
Yeah.
Chapman is great, but you can't have him go 2 innings and then have back-to-backs. And especially the Yankees are very big on not making sure they do that in the regular season.
Yeah.
So, you're expecting a guy that not only is he throwing more pitches because he's throwing multiple innings, but then he's also going back-to-back.
Yeah.
Keep the guys on their schedule.
Yeah. I don't get it. And here's what I was saying. I think that baseball has this wonderful opportunity to attract, younger fans again with the younger players that are coming up. I know Acuna Jr. is not playing in here because he's hurt, but there's still a lot of really good young stars on both these teams. A lot of very likable players, even though you think about the Astros, there's nobody likable there, but they've got some pretty good young players and young pitchers, as well, and so do the Braves. But nobody's going to sit there for 4 hours. Nobody's going to sit there and watch all of these pitching changes, and the shift, man. I can't stand the shifts. I mean, it takes away so many hits. And I was telling you something earlier that clicked on me in the last few days about what Ozzie Smith had been, or Omar Vizquel, some of these, terrific shortstops over, kind of span my generation and yours. But with the shift, I mean, when Ozzie Smith had been able to go in the hole as far as he did, he wouldn't have had to, right? Because he'd have had the third baseman playing there. And Derek Jeter, I mean, very underrated, I think, for his defensive prowess. But think about how many times did we see him go all the way in the hole, jump, and make that throw from left field. He would have never done any of that.
Yeah.
And so it kills the offense, and I love to see a great pitched game, but oh my goodness, but even a great pitched game, and take us at least into the 7th or 8th inning. Can you imagine if Bob Gibson or one of these guys, the manager, came in the 6th inning after you're giving up a hit or two and said, yeah, give me the ball? They were like, get out of here,
Or even think the 90s, Roger Clemens. He's not.
My gosh,
Randy Johnson, Kurt Schilling. These guys aren't going out in the 6th inning.
I mean, we would have, it wasn't uncommon for a starting pitcher, especially in a 7-game series, to start 3 games in that 7-game series and be the MVP. Bob Gibson did it, Kurt Schilling. You can go right down the list. I mean, those days kind of are over now. You're going to have a hitter that's MVP. You're not going to really, unless you get a great relief pitcher that pitches in every game. So what's your prediction here for Astros Braves?
I don't know. Because it seems like it's pretty even. I thought maybe if the Braves had won yesterday, the Braves will win. But I am thinking I'm going to lean more towards the Astros.
Mm.
Having home field in Game 6 and 7 is going to be big. And I think a huge thing that's going to kind of start to rear its ugly head is the crucial injury to Charlie Morton. The Braves will probably have to roll out 2 openers throughout this series. And while I think they can survive that, and I think they can make that work, I don't know. I see kind of the Astros, especially another thing that needs to be fixed is the whole DH pitcher rule. I don't think it'll affect the Astros as much as it would affect other teams, such as the Yankees, such as the Red Sox, the White Sox too. But I think having that home field is going to be really big.
Yeah.
And a lot of these Astros players, or at least the guys that were there in 2017, I think a lot of them want to get the monkey off of their back.
Yeah.
I feel like Bregman has kind of shown that he was only good because of the sign stealing. He hasn't really been that good. But a guy like Carlos Correa, if he has a very big rest of this World Series, people will look at him differently. And I think in general, historically, people look back and be like, oh, well, I guess that wasn't as bad. There were still good guys there.
Yeah.
But for me, I think one of the most positive things and the thing I'm excited about the most is no matter who wins, I'm really excited for the manager. Dusty Baker, longtime guy that deserves it.
Yeah.
And then also Brian Sticker, who's been with the Braves organization for 44 years.
That was amazing. I didn't realize that until you told me. That's just absolutely amazing. Yeah, both seem to be great guys. And Dusty Baker, I remember him obviously as a very, very clutch postseason player with the Dodgers back when I was a kid, and he just hasn't gotten over the hump. And he's run into bad luck with the Cubs. The Nationals win the championship the year after they let him go. The Giants, he's so close, in that game 6, and oh my God.
Pulling, was it Russ Ortiz?
Russ Ortiz, who was dealing, he was overmanaging that time.
Yeah.
So I'd like to see him get a shot.
Also, a quick fun fact with Dusty Baker. He made his major league debut with the Braves.
Yeah.
Against the Astros.
Oh, I didn't know that. Against the Astros, wow. And then he got traded from the Braves to the Dodgers, where he had his great years. He was an all-star, steady all-star player. All right, so we're going Astros. I think I'm going Braves. I just think that this has been a special season for the Braves. What they did at the trading deadline, I've never seen done before with the players that they picked up. I knew that they had, outdid the Mets, even though Javi Baez turned out to be really good. I like him. I hope the Mets do at least make an effort to keep him. But them getting those 3 outfielders, and look at Eddie Rosario. Oh my gosh, where would they have been without him? And then Soler leads off, with a home run. Leads the World Series off with a home run. So amazing. It'll be interesting. I guess by the time we do our next one, we'll have a good idea, right? It might not be over because it's 3 games this weekend, but we'll see.
Yeah, and you mentioned the trade deadline. So often people talk about like August 3rd or 4th, like who won the trade deadline. Like this year, you heard a lot with the Dodgers with getting Trey Turner and Scherzer.
Oh, that was great though.
The Yankees with Gallo and Rizzo.
Yeah.
But I think we can all agree now.
The Braves.
It's got to be the Braves.
Got to be the Braves. Yeah. Now, can the Dodgers, if they keep Scherzer, Turner is not a free agent, but if they keep Scherzer, I would say that long term, that's pretty good for them.
Yeah. Imagine their rotation though with Kershaw, Scherzer.
Yeah.
I mean, David Price, Trevor Bauer if he plays, Walker Buehler.
Yeah.
That's scary.
Yeah. And the 20-game winner, which they didn't give a start to, that doesn't make any sense to me. Yeah. The only guy in baseball that he went 20-3, and they didn't give him a start in the championship series. That makes zero. He should have been slated to start game 1, game 4, and if there was a game 7, because he was their best pitcher this year. With all those stars, he still was their best pitcher. All right, let's jump over to the NFL, which this weekend was the first weekend there was a lot of blowouts. So, but there's a big game on tonight. It's been hard for me to get into Thursday night football. I think you too.
Yeah.
But the Packers and Cardinals tonight. Are you surprised that the Cardinals are the only undefeated team?
Yes and no. I think primarily because, you looked at their division, you had the Rams, the Niners, and Seattle. And, obviously with Russell Wilson getting hurt, Seattle, they're kind of done. The 49ers, you could argue, are one of the most disappointing teams this year.
Yeah, I thought they'd be better.
But then also, the Rams are doing great. Let's see, I have this one here. This is the first year since 1975 that there's 6 teams with a record of at least 5-1 or better.
Wow.
The Cardinals, the Ravens, the Bucks, the Cowboys, Packers, and the Rams. So it's a very interesting year in that regard. But also, I feel like Kyler Murray's kind of taken that next step. I think having J.J. Watt, who is going to be out for the year, I think he has been a very big addition to, not necessarily because of his play, but to that defense. I think he provides a lot of leadership.
Yeah, he is. He's always been a really good leader.
And DeAndre Hopkins is still a top 5 wide receiver too.
Yeah.
So
I
guess I'm still surprised too because they've faced a lot of really good teams and have passed the test every single time. I think this will be another big test for them tonight. If they can beat the Packers, you got to start thinking it's going to be really hard for a team to go 17-0.
Oh, yeah.
But you got to start thinking, is this team really the team to beat in the NFC?
It might be. They might be. Although the Packers, since their blowout on opening day, they've just been outstanding. And they've beaten some really, really, really good teams. And I think Aaron Rodgers has something to prove. I think he's got a big chip on his shoulder. So I like the Packers tonight. I think they'll pull that game out tonight, but we'll see. I think Arizona, yeah, there's no way they're going undefeated. I don't think. And I think almost if they lose tonight, they'll have 10 days off. If they are, wow, it's kind of hard to say, right? I started to say 14-2 or 15-2. But if there's is a 17 game season, right?
Yeah.
So if they're 15-2, that wouldn't be bad if they lost 2 games and 3 games even this year. So
Yeah.
Any other big surprises for you? We really haven't spent much time on the Jets and Giants, so why don't we do that for a few seconds? The Giants won. They had a good win this past week, right?
Yeah.
And so, are you optimistic here for the rest of the Giants season? They have a tough schedule over these next few weeks. They play the Chiefs, I think, on Monday night.
Yeah.
This week coming up.
Yeah, well, it's funny because out of all of the teams that they're playing, the Chiefs is like one of the teams I'm like,
Well, the Chiefs haven't been that good. They're 3-4, which is stunning. But nonetheless, they are the Chiefs. So, is there, do you have some hope going forward with the Giants here?
Truth be told, not really. I'll just read off their schedule here. So they get the Chiefs. Then they host the Raiders. Then they go to Tampa Bay. And then it gets a little bit easier because they face off against the Eagles, the Dolphins. But then they go Chargers, Cowboys, and then Eagles, Bears, and then Washington end it.
Wow.
So,
okay. All right.
Like, it's rough.
Tough way to go. Yeah. But I think, they're in better shape, I think, than the Jets. And I don't know what to say much about the Jets. I mean, they get Joe Flacco, and Joe Flacco down, and he said they're not starting him, which I don't know why they traded back for him if they're not going to start him. I mean, it's not like, they had to call him up. He was somewhere. He hadn't played yet, but at least he was on a team.
Yeah.
I think that the Jets GM leaves a lot to be desired. I think he's made some bad decisions. I think it's not a little, it turns out into a big deal. Their tight end position has just not been good. And they had their tight end staying and blocking one-on-one, and it finally broke down. And that's the guy who messed up, Zach Wilson's leg. I can't blame the tight end. He shouldn't have been one-on-one. So some of the things, like, I don't know why they cut Joe Flacco, at the end of the year and not have bring in a veteran backup. Lord knows there's plenty of veteran backups out there that you could bring Cam Newton,
Yeah. Well, and I mean, look at Seattle. They haven't been great, but your boy Geno Smith has had a few decent games.
At least Geno Smith is a professional NFL quarterback, right? Yeah. He's had some success. The Jets don't have anybody, which is stunning on a squad where you have this very young quarterback who's been hurt before, by the way. I read about this week in college a couple of times. And so it's really surprising. I think this is just going to be another long year for the Jets. Getting blown out 54-13, that's just embarrassing. And the Pats are good. They're very good. Those are, great game against Dallas the week before that they lost, but not 54-13 good. Are the Jets that bad? I don't, and we all of a sudden don't really have any playmakers. We have C.J. Mosley on defense. Seems like every really good player that we had, we traded away or let go, whether it's Robbie Anderson or
Jamal
Adams. It's hard, man. It really is. And it's been now several years for that, since the Jets have been good. And I think the Giants have been in kind of the same boat. But I see a light at the end for the Giants a little bit, and I'm struggling to see that for the Jets. Here's the other thing. I do think both teams have actually pretty good young coaches who would probably, if they let go tomorrow, would probably land somewhere else, So, but it's just the structure around them. I think both of the GMs leave a little bit to be desired, but especially the Jets, GM. So we'll see what happens there. I want to shift gears, though, and jump to the NBA. But before that, we can start off with a story in the NBA. We were a little bit ahead of the curve in our last couple of podcasts, and we talked about some stories that weren't as big at the moment but then became really big stories. And one was John Gruden and the horrible emails that he sent. And we briefly touched on it. He had made an excuse that he was talking about, the Michelin tire lips was always running his mouth. Which, okay, I could see that, a tire always running, whatever, but that's not what he meant. Nobody believed that.
No.
And then next day he's let go, or he resigned, I guess. Technically he resigned. So let's stay on there for a second. The Raiders have. Remember, I told you, I said they didn't look right against the Bears. And it turns out the Bears are not that good. The Bears got just spanked.
They got killed by the Patriots.
By the Patriots, yeah, and they got spanked. And so the Bears just really aren't that good, but yet they had their way with the Raiders. I didn't get the sense that the Raiders were playing hard, or that I shouldn't say they weren't playing hard, but they weren't together. You can just tell. Now all of a sudden they've rattled off a couple of really big wins for them. So what was your take on John Gruden?
Well, I'll start with this. I know it was 10 years ago. The Bible does say that reckless words pierce like a sword.
Yep.
It doesn't say reckless words from 10 years ago are fine. Like, it's not necessarily the length of time, but still, like, the content of what he said is hurtful. I think of it as, like, let's say you were to say something really bad about your significant other, but they didn't hear about it for 20 years. It's still going to hurt them when they hear it for the first time. Yeah. So I think, first of all, like, when it comes to any digital email, text message, tweets, I would always be very careful about what you say. Because it doesn't matter if it's now or 2025 or 2035. People will look back and see it. Part of the reason why there's still not a full-time Jeopardy host, because everyone they find has some kind of tweet that's racist or homophobic or sexist or whatever. So, like, it's always important to watch what you say. Secondly, it also seems like there was a lot of animosity in there, because like Gruden had a lot of power.
Yeah.
You don't give a guy a 10-year, $100 million contract to be your head coach for nothing.
Yeah.
But it seems like now that he's gone, like kind of like when you have like that boss that's very, very oppressive, but then like when they leave, everyone kind of relaxes. It kind of seems like that's what's happened.
Maybe that's what happened. Yeah.
But the bottom line is you got to be careful with what you say. I know he wasn't employed by the NFL, but like at this point too, I would be surprised if you see Gruden again, not only just as a head coach, but even in places like ESPN or he'll end up somewhere. But
and I'm all for second chances, and I know you are too.
Yeah.
We talked about Tom Brenneman, before. I think Gruden will probably get a second chance. I don't think it'll be soon, although his name's already been linked with a couple of college jobs like USC
I could see
and
that.
a few others. But he'd have to earn that respect back, I think. None of his current team came to his defense. That was telling to me. It was like all older players that were at the end of their career when they played for him, like Tim Brown and a few others that came to his defense. And you didn't hear anybody from ESPN coming to his defense either. And he was there for over 10 years. And so I thought that was telling. And, the homophobic remarks, I mean, you have the right now only openly gay player on your team in the NFL that's come out and said that. And so I just think that I think that maybe his true character came out, unfortunately. Whereas that, Tom Brenneman, maybe it was just a real slip, although it's hard for me to believe that he never said that word, that he had said. But with Gruden, I mean, and apparently we only saw or heard about a few of the emails. Apparently there's hundreds that he said. And so I do think there was no way he was going to be able to continue once this started to unfold a little bit more. But will he get another job? Listen, I think everybody deserves a second chance. I think be contrite. And at first he was making excuses, and then the next day he was like, "No, I was wrong." When he left. And then we haven't heard from him, which is fine. He should probably let the dust settle for a little while. It is going to be a bigger scandal, I think, with the Washington team and all these other emails that came out.
Yeah, I think so too.
There was a coach named George Allen who was a great coach in the 60s and 70s when I was a kid, and he coached the Rams and the Redskins at the time, and then I think the Rams again. But he had a lot of success with the Redskins, took him to the Super Bowl, and that's his son, Bruce Allen, who was the GM there for a long time.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah, and so that's a shame. And unfortunately, George Allen, he was up in age, and he went to Stanford to be a coach. I want to say he even replaced Bill Walsh, and he wasn't a very healthy guy at this point in time, and it was a very cold night. And you know how they do those Gatorade baths?
yeah.
It's not funny, but they gave him a Gatorade bath. The poor guy got pneumonia and he died a few days later.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I mean, it just that was George Allen, who was I don't know if he's in the Hall of Fame, he might be, but he was a great coach.
And one more thing too with Gruden.
Go ahead, yeah.
You also can't say anything about your boss like
Yeah.
that. Like that would be like me putting out a very inappropriate Facebook post about the general superintendent of AG.
Right.
Like
Right.
I can't do that and then expect to still keep my job.
Yeah.
Regardless of how you feel about
Yeah.
Roger Goodell,
Yeah.
I know he's not exactly the best commissioner, but still, like
Yeah.
once again, like it doesn't matter like how it happens.
Yeah.
When you say something like that publicly and it like, or I know it was private, but like when you say something that has some type of footprint, even if you delete it, even if you say, oh well, I didn't mean that, or I hit like send, like it's just don't do it.
I mean, you should even. I think here's the other thing that didn't get past me. There was no responses that said, "Hey, Gruden, watch your language," or maybe you shouldn't be saying this on
Yeah.
email. You know, people were like laughing at some of his things, and you know, it's really really unfortunate. The other thing we talked about that then became a big story in the couple of weeks that we haven't been back was Kyrie Irving. And so we'll switch to the NBA now because the NBA season's been really interesting to start off. And we'll spend only a couple of minutes because I want to get to your fun facts. But um, Kyrie obviously refuses to get vaccinated. It's a little bit of an older story now. The Nets, as expected, really hadn't played that well. Last game or two, I think they played well, but it's a big story in New York. There was a whole protest of fans, protesting for him that actually tried to get into the arena. And so, what's your take on the whole Kyrie thing?
I think first of all, I think the Nets did the right thing.
Yeah,
Whether
agree.
you believe vaccinated or not vaccinated, it's very hard in the NBA to have a guy that's there but then not there.
Yeah.
Especially for a team that has as high aspirations as the Nets do. Because if they're looking at, oh, we could actually win a title, how would you feel if you have Kyrie Irving for a road game 6, but then you can't have him for game 7 against, say, Milwaukee or hopefully the Knicks? But
Yeah.
like it just, to me, it was the right thing to say, like, it's your choice. Either you can get vaccinated or we'll see you next year, essentially.
Yeah.
But I do think that this starts to look a little bit worse on him. Not necessarily because of this choice,
Hmm.
but you look at his career as a whole.
Yeah.
In Cleveland, he couldn't get along with LeBron. So he has to be traded to Boston. He's telling all the Celtics fans, like, I'm going to be here forever. And then bolts at the site of free agency. And now here in Brooklyn, he's having issues. I wonder if he's starting to lose chances here. But then also, like, at some point, people are going to start to say, well, maybe this guy's the problem. Maybe he's not just in, like, other situations. And the Nets played better last year, or the last 2 years, without him than they played with him. The Celtics got further in the playoffs without him than with him.
Yeah.
So, I mean, the Cavs still made the finals without him, even though Isaiah Thomas barely played with them.
Yeah.
So, it is interesting. I'm curious to see how this is going to unfold.
There's always something.
Yeah.
Right? There seems to always be something. And it's fun. He's definitely one of the top 5, definitely one of the, I think one of the top 5, but definitely one of the top 10 players in the league. We would agree, right?
Yeah.
Talent-wise. He's still only 29 years old. But he's just one of these guys that there's always something. And, you know, this is, you know, by itself, you know, I've been on the record. I don't mind saying this on the podcast because I know, you know, the vaccination thing can be very, very, controversial or whatever. I can totally understand both sides.
Yeah.
I'm fully vaccinated for my own personal reasons, but I also understand people that aren't for their own personal reasons, and so I don't want to kill him for that, right? For not being vaccinated. But to your point, there's other people, a lot of people depending on him, especially when I think about, we were talking about Kevin Durant earlier. There's no way Kevin Durant would have signed with Brooklyn had he not known that Kyrie Irving was coming, and they're teaming up. And that's a championship caliber team.
Yeah.
Then you added James Harden, which they weren't expecting to do, right, last year. And so it's a championship caliber team. And, I'm not sure that he's taking all that into consideration. I think he's really just probably thinking about himself. But see, on the other hand, I see a different side also, Kyrie. He's a humanitarian. Like I was telling you this, would it shock you at all if saw an alert on your phone that says Kyrie retired and he's running for president?
Yeah.
He's that type of guy. He's got a heart for causes. He's given millions and millions of dollars away to charities. He sponsored. I want to say there was a class of in a
HBCU.
of like over 200 people that he paid their full tuition, for. And so he's a guy that I don't know that his heart is in basketball. Maybe it is still because that's where he's made his money. I think he still loves to play, but there's always just something, right?
Yeah.
So this alone, I can't kill him over, because again, the vaccine thing it's personal. And if he's decided personally not to do that, I'm not going to kill you over that. I get it. But has he taken into consideration his teammates and everything like that? He probably hasn't, because he is kind of all about him. Yet there's that other side of him that his heart breaks for, humanitarians, for the lost. And that's kind of Jesus like, right? His heart just breaks for the underprivileged and everything like that. And he knows he's privileged because, his contract, he makes like $30-something million a year. But he's come out and said that he knows that, he has privilege. So it's a tough one for me with him.
Yeah.
I want to kill him, but I suppose if I was a Nets fan, I would feel more strongly against. But I just, he's a guy would not, if he walked away from the NBA tomorrow, we'd still hear about him.
Yeah.
Because he's going to be involved in stuff. He's got that type of heart.
Yeah. Something else to kind of keep in mind too. I know it's 5 games, but a lot of people are looking at kind of the changes with, that they've changed like the way that you can draw a foul.
Yeah.
And a guy that's really hurt from it this year is James Harden.
Right. I read about that. Yeah.
So just to he's averaged at least 25 points a game every year since 2012. This year, like I said, 5 games, but he's averaging 16 points a game.
Wow.
I don't know.
That's a huge drop off. And he's a big free throw guy. He would always get to the line.
And that's something that's been really far down too. So.
He'll adjust though. I see the Nets. I think are going to be okay. I don't think they're better than the Bucks still in the East. I think the Bucks are still the team to beat in the East, even if Kyrie comes back. But I do think that the Nets will straighten themselves out and still win 50, 55 games. I'm excited about the Knicks. I know you are.
Yeah.
I think we can probably save another podcast and just talk about them. Now we were supposed to fix the Mets and Yankees. Let's do that real quick. Right?
Okay.
So let's fix the Mets and fix the Yankees. So I'll give you my 3 real quick on the Mets. So this way you can do that and you can give your other facts and you can wrap us up. First, I need an experienced GM and I need an experienced manager. No more taking chances on a good bench coach or anything like that. There's too many of these guys. Yes, they're up in age, but I'm willing to take a chance. Dusty Baker is 72 years old and he's sitting in the World Series. I don't know how old Stickler is, but he's got to be well up into his 60s if he's been with them for 40-something years, right? So I'm saying, go out if you can get the old GM from the Giants and let him bring in Bruce Bochy. He's my number 1 guy that I'd like to see. Number 2 would be Buck Showalter.
Oh, that's a good one.
Number 3 would be Mike Scioscia. Go out and get one of those guys. Bring in somebody with experience. They can adapt to the analytics. Listen, Bochy won 3 championships without the analytics stuff. The Giants have never been huge on that. And the Giants won 107 games this year. They still kind of have that same philosophy. Okay, so that's number one. Bring in an experienced GM and an experienced manager.
Can I throw one more name?
Yes.
Ron Washington?
I'll take Ron Washington. I think I'm surprised he hasn't gotten another shot. I'll take him in a second, and I'll take Jerry Manuel even, or
hey, he's experienced.
Willie Randolph, he's experienced too. I need another big time starting pitcher. I cannot depend on DeGrom. I'm not going to depend on Syndergaard. I need another really big time starting pitcher. I don't have a name for them yet, but I need to either make a big trade or I need to sign a really good frontline starting pitcher. It doesn't have to be necessarily number one, but a solid number 2, number 3 starter I need. And my last one is I need one more good outfielder. I'm really, really down on, not down, that's not the right word. I don't know if they'll bring back Conforto. I think he'll probably, if they offer him the 1-year thing, I think he'll take it. He'd be a fool not to, in my opinion, because I don't think he'd get a big contract out there, although there's always one dumb owner. But Dom Smith, he took a big step backwards last year. I need another big time outfielder. You saw what the Braves did. They're out there. You can get an outfielder that'll hit you 25, 30 home runs, knocking 100 RBIs. The Mets are lacking in that. I think I love Brandon Nimmo. He's never playing a full season. He's always hurt.
Yeah.
So even if you got me a good center fielder, Starling Marte would be a guy I would love to have on this team. But those are my 3 things. So GM, manager, a good starting pitcher, and another big time outfielder. And get rid of some of the dead weight. The Mets do have a little bit of dead weight here. Nothing you could do about James McCann. He is who he is. But there's a few other players that, I'm leaning now towards really bringing back Baez. So good. How do you fix the Yankees?
Well, speaking of dead weight, there's a little bit less flexibility with the Yankees offense.
Yeah.
Especially I look at the outfield. I don't think they'll get rid of Joey Gallo after half a season. I don't think they will. They have Aaron Hicks locked up for a while, and then Stanton and Judge. So first, I would say the Yankees need to revamp their infield. Their intention for this year, like the way that they had planned it out. Obviously, this wasn't their opening day because Voit was hurt, but first to third was supposed to be Voit, LeMahieu, Torres, and Urshela. I'm going to say that 2022, none of those guys should play in the same positions. I lean more towards bringing back Rizzo and looking to try to trade Voit for a pretty decent arm.
Mm-hmm.
I think Rizzo really helps balance the lineup. I think also his on base and just kind of his presence in the locker room. And he also wants to come back.
Ball player.
So I'd say him. I'm okay with Torres at second base next year. It seemed like he started to click when he was there, and also he hit 38 home runs by playing second base a couple years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I would keep him there. Shortstop, I'm kind of torn between 2 guys, and I'll explain kind of why here. I would love for them to get Carlos Correa, which is something I don't think I'd say a year ago. I think his clutch hitting in the playoffs is excellent.
Excellent player. He really is.
But I think my biggest concern, and I think why they would go after the guy that I'm going to say next, is they have 2 shortstops that they love in their system, Anthony Volt and Oswaldo Peraza.
Mm-hmm.
So I can see them going for more of like a stopgap type of guy. And the guy that I would say, you'll probably agree here, is Marcus Semien.
Oh, boy.
And he can also shift around a little bit. I can also see them going after a guy like Seager or Story, but that would be who I would go after. And then third base, I would put LeMahieu there and then also package Gio somewhere else. I love Gio Urshela as a defensive guy. His offense is kind of up and down, but to me, I think this is kind of the year where you try to sell high-ish on him, especially when you have guys that can still play third base, like LeMahieu can play third, Wade and Odor play a little bit of third base, so that's what I would do, revamp the infield. Number 2, I would extend Judge as soon as possible. It's a lot of CBA talks, so I think that that's going to be a little bit of a concern.
Yeah.
But he is due to be a free agent at the end of the 2022 season. And I think having him not worry about whether or not he's going to be playing in pinstripes moving forward will be huge. He
Yeah.
had an excellent year.
Still the face of the franchise. You got to bring him back.
Yeah. So I think it's just a matter of getting it done. They'll probably wait until after the CBA is finalized so that they can see what they can do. Last thing is adding another arm. Right now, the Yankees have about 6 or 7 decent pitchers. Like, you have Cole, who's obviously locked in there. You got Montgomery, who had a pretty good year. Nestor Cortez, who had a pretty good year. And a couple other guys, too. But I feel like, kind of like with your Mets, I think the Yankees need like a 1A type of guy.
Yeah.
I'd love to say a guy like Scherzer, but the Yankees was on his no trade clause list. I don't think he would come. Maybe a Clayton Kershaw or someone like that. I'd be open to a guy like Syndergaard. But the Yankees also have a lot of injury risk anyway. Tyone's probably going to miss the first month of the year. But I do think the Yankees need another arm. They have the depth, but you don't want to use guys like Luis Gil as your 4th or 5th starter yet.
Yeah.
Not yet.
Yeah. So the things that we have in common here is that we both didn't say anything about the bullpens. I think, we both got pretty good bullpens. All right. Well, I don't think you were asking for too much. I think that's good. I think that's a solid plan.
Yeah. And I mean, this team already has a pretty good core.
Yeah.
And I think also when it comes to the hitting coach, because they let Marcus Timms go, they got to get a guy that doesn't just rely on like the home run strikeout, the 3 true outcomes thing. They need a guy that kind of focuses getting these guys to just go with contact.
Yeah.
Joey Gallo striking out 20 times and hitting 1 home run does not help. It creates a hole in the lineup.
It's amazing. Yeah. It's amazing. All right. We got some fun facts that have to do with your little baby girl.
Yep. So Eliana was born on October 17th. Very, very quickly. So I decided I wanted to do a few fun facts on this date in history. So here are a few things that happened real quick on October 17th. In 2010, the Detroit Lions tied their own NFL record by losing their 24th straight road game. I didn't mention this one to you, but in 1960, the New York Mets were born. The National League had granted the Mets as a franchise.
Yeah.
So 1989, fast forward a few years there, earthquake in the Bay Area delayed the World Series between Oakland and San Francisco.
Yeah, I remember that night like it was yesterday.
Yeah. 99, a big night for you. The Mets beat the Braves in the longest postseason game in MLB history, winning it on a walk-off grand slam single by Robin Ventura.
What a clutch player Robin Ventura was. Oh, my God.
Yeah.
I told you this last night. Had the Mets won Game 6, they were going to win Game 7 that year. The Red Sox would have been that first team, but it's a whole other story.
Yeah. Well, the rest of these kind of follow that same pattern. So 2005, Albert Pujols hits a moonshot in Houston off of Brad Lidge to send the series back to St. Louis. Unfortunately, they would lose a couple days later. And then 2017, led by the eventual Rookie of the Year and should have been MVP Aaron Judge, the Yankees down 4 in the 8th, come back and score 6 runs to beat Houston. Once again, Judge should have won MVP that year.
Yeah. Wow. The Astros coming back to win that series was huge because I didn't think that they would after Pujols' home run. Yeah. And Brad Lidge was such a good closer that year. Didn't he have 0 blown saves until he gave up that home run?
Yeah, I think that year, and then also 2000. I think it was 2009.
Yeah.
He was perfect in the regular season and blew
something in the World Series, right? In the World Series that year. Wow.
That was I think it was actually against A-Rod, if I remember right.
Yeah, but that shows it's hard to beat in baseball, especially. It's hard to beat a team 2 straight years, because the Cardinals beat them the year before, and then the Astros, even with that devastation, came back and won. So all right. Take us home, man.
All right. So it was good catching up with everyone. We really love doing this. We love being back, and it's good to do this in person.
Yeah.
But for now, this is Kenny Squared End.
Kenny.
With Sports on the Positive Tip. We'll see you guys next week.
All right. We'll talk to you later.